Rang Undang-Undang Kerajaan. Bacaan kali yang kedua. Temporary Measure for Reducing the Impact of Corona Disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Yang berhormat Timbalan Ketua Menteri, Menteri Kewangan Kedua, Menteri Perhubungan Pertanian, Tanah Adat dan Pengurusan Wilayah dan Ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri N37 Bukit Saban.
Terima kasih Datuk Yang Dipertua, Datuk Amar Yang Dipertua, dan selamat petang. I beg to move that the temporary measure to reduce the impact of coronavirus diseases 2019, COVID-19 Bill 2020 to be read a second time. Datuk Amar Speaker, the bill provides for temporary measure to reduce the impact of coronavirus diseases 2019, COVID-19, including to modify the relevant provision in the ordinances referred to in the schedule of the bill. Datuk Amar Speaker, the COVID-19 global pandemic does not spare any country. To date, COVID-19 has infected 50 million people worldwide, with 1.26 million deaths. In Malaysia, COVID-19 has affected over 40,000 people, causing 286 deaths, while in Sarawak, COVID-19 was reported to be 987 cases, causing 19 deaths. Datuk Amar Speaker, as the government, we are confronting a combination of a health and economic crisis head-on. In response to the pandemic, Malaysia had enforced the Movement Control Order, MCO, from 18 March 2020, which was extended until 3rd May 2020. This was followed by Conditional Movement Control Order, which was enforced from the 4th May 2020 to 9 June. Subsequently, the Recovery Movement Control Order came into force on the 10th of June to 31st and subsequently extended to 31st December 2020. In light of the current COVID-19 situation, the federal government had implemented Enhanced Movement Control Order, and Conditional Movement Control Order in several states in Malaysia. Currently, Kuching district is red zone, and we enforce Conditional Movement Control Order in the Kuching district from 9 November to 22nd November 2020. Datuk Amar Speaker, to ease and cushion the burden and hardship faced by the rakyat, especially those less fortunate during this unprecedented time, both federal and state government have announced various aids and assistance. Datuk Amar Speaker, during the imposition of the movement control measure, many businesses and services were forced to face difficulties such as their inability to perform their contractual obligation and statutory duties or to conduct statutory meeting. Therefore, the federal government has introduced the temporary measure to reduce the impact of Coronavirus 2019 Act 2020, COVID-19 Act. Datuk Amar Speaker, the Parliament has passed COVID-19 Act 22nd October, but that Act only extends where federal law applicable to the state and where state law that has been declared as a federal limitation. It doesn't include the state law. And therefore, the state government now has taken a proactive measure to introduce this bill, which seeks to complement COVID-19 Act and provide further temporary relief from obligation under various state ordinances not covered by COVID-19 Act. Among the state laws that were affected and not covered by the COVID-19 Act are 1. Native Court Ordinance 1992, 2. Local Authority Ordinance 1995, 3. Land Use Control of Prescribed Trading Activities Ordinance 1997, 4. Wildlife Protection Ordinance 1998, 5. National Park and Natural Reserve Ordinance 1998, 6. Veterinary Public Health Ordinance, 7. State Fisheries Ordinance, 8. Mineral Ordinance, 9. Housing Development Control and Licensing Ordinance 2013, and Housing Development Control and Licensing Regulation, SARAWAK. 10. Forest Ordinance. 11. The Land Court. And 11. The Land Court. Dato' Mas Speaker, the immediate objective of the bill is to modify the relevant provision in the ordinance referred to in the schedule and to assist those faced with difficulties in addressing the inability to perform contractual obligation and addressing the inability to perform statutory duties or obligation to conduct statutory meeting during the imposition of the movement control order. For example, Section 6A(4) of the Land Court, which provide that if any application for native territorial domain is rejected by the director, this is a hypothetical case, an appeal to the minister must be made within 30 days from the date of such rejection. If the 30 days period expired between 18 March 2020 to 31st August 2020, then in the absence of this act, he will lose his right. But with this act, he will be given the right to appeal extended until 31st December 2020. Dato' Mas Speaker, the bill also provides that any statutory duties or obligation of any authority may be extended to allow the necessary function of that authority that is affected by the pandemic to be properly exercised so as to provide the people with best service possible. For example, under Section 161 of the Charitable Trust Ordinance 1994, Caption 7, make it mandatory for every Board of Trustees to submit a list of property and statement account to the Minister on or before 31st day of March each year. Since 31st March fall during the period MCO, Clause 7 of this bill allowed the Minister to extend the time of submission of this document until December 2020, until 31st December. Clause 8 of the bill allowed the alternative arrangement in regard to convening, holding, or conducting statutory meeting. For example, the statutory meeting requires under Regulation 2 of the Regulation of the Board of Trustees under the Charitable Trust Ordinance 1994 requires the Board of Trustees to convene a meeting at least once every 6 months. With this Clause 8, such meeting may be conducted online using various applications such as Zoom or Skype. Dato' Mas Speaker, Clause 9 of the bill gives the Majlis Kerja Negeri the power to amend the schedule, where the Majlis Kerja Negeri may, by notification in the Gazette, amend the schedule. This will allow for temporary measures to be enforced to reduce the impact of coronavirus disease 2019, including to modify the relevant provision in the ordinance referred to in the schedule. Thomas Speaker, the bill also allows for the minister charged with any responsibility for any ordinance listed in the schedule, with the approval of Majlis Mesyuarat Kerja Negeri, to make a regulation to provide further measures to reduce the impact of COVID-19 within the enforcement period of this bill. This bill, once passed, would be deemed to have come into force on 18 March 2020, should remain in force for a period of 2 years from the date of its publication. In the event the pandemic continue and the state government is opinion that this law should remain in force, the Yang Berhormat Chief Minister may make necessary order for its extension. Thomas Speaker, protecting and safeguarding the life and the livelihood of the people is our duty and must be given top priority. Moving forward, for the best interest of the people of Sarawak, and to reiterate this government commitment to serve the riot and to ensure this well-being is being protected, I appeal to this August House that this bill should be all supported. Thomas Speaker, I beg to move.
I beg to second. Alaihi Muhammad, I shall call upon honorable members of this House to debate on the second reading of the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 bill. Any honorable member who should speak? Member for Repok.
Dato' Ahmad Speaker, saya bangun mencintai ahli-ahli yang berhormat dalam Dewan Mulia ini untuk mengambil bahagian dalam pembahasan rang undang-undang bertajuk Temporary Measure for Reducing the Impact of Coronavirus Disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Dato' Ahmad Speaker, seperti yang kita semua maklum bahawa pada masa ini, negara kita Malaysia malah seluruh dunia sedang menghadapi krisis yang sangat bahaya, iaitu pandemik COVID-19. Pandemik ini bukan sahaja memberi impak kesihatan yang serius kepada manusia, malah juga mencecaskan ekonomi dunia. Pembelajaran anak-anak kita penggerakan harian di mana keseluruhan norma kehidupan manusia berubah. Kita di Sarawak pun tidak terkecuali daripada menerima kesan impak pandemik. Walaupun tidak setinggi angka negeri jiran kita dan beberapa negeri lain di semenanjung Malaysia, tetapi penularan yang ada juga sudah cukup untuk mendatangkan rasa kerisauan dan cemas di kalangan masyarakat kita. We are living through unusual time which need unusual measure. Kerajaan negeri Sarawak telah menggerakkan jentera berbagai agensi kerajaan negeri dan persekutuan dalam usaha mengekang penularan wabak COVID-19 di Sarawak. Kita amat bersyukur dengan pimpinan Sarawak di bawah kerajaan GPS, terutamanya dengan langkah-langkah berkesan untuk mengkawal border Sarawak telah menyebabkan situasi COVID-19 di Sarawak terkawal. Jadi pengubahan rang undang-undang ini mempunyai signifikasi yang besar dalam membaiki dan memperkasakan aspek pelaksanaan dan penguatkuasaan dalam usaha memerangi COVID-19 di Sarawak. Dato' Ahmad Speaker, dengan pandangan-pandangan yang saya telah huraikan di sini, saya menyokong pengubahan temporary measure for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Terima kasih.
Can you press your button because I can't see properly with the barriers. Tanjung Batu, member for Tanjung Batu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to participate in the debate. COVID-19 is a global pandemic, and we see how it is affecting everybody in the world. It doesn't differentiate what gender, age, race, creed, or religion you are, nor does it differentiate what political party you are from. It can attack each and every one of us. It is therefore our common enemy, and we are under attack. To fight a common enemy when we are under attack, we need a concerted effort to fight it. In another word, we need everyone to come out to fight the enemy together. We need to fight it together because our fellow countrymen is in danger, and we have to help them, no matter who he or she is. That is why our Legislative Council, being the representative of the people from all over Sarawak, we need to act as one solid body and to be seen by the people of our resolve and determination to lead and fight this war and beat our enemy for the sake of our people. We can only win this war if we are united, else there will be too much unnecessary casualties. It is because of this, and with due respect to the State Disaster Management Committee, that when we are dealing with an enemy like this, we should summon all our representatives on both sides of the aisle to be in a committee to fight the COVID-19 pandemic together. I believe this will help us to help our people even more thoroughly from all different aspects and angles and walk of life. And being a member of the committee, then we would know how to help them even more. For example, like the Bantuan Khas Sarawak Sayang, so many of the hawker folks and pasar malam traders and others, they are complaining that they have not received any bantuan yet, although they have all properly registered. They did not get any reply, nor did they get any response, and they have nowhere to appeal to. They try to call Kuching, but Kuching tells them to call Bintulu, and they call the residents call them to call BDA. It goes round and round. And these make them even more frustrated and sicker by the day, even before they were infected by COVID. Many of them don't have Sarawak pay also, so how could they be paid? That's another problem. And we are seeing long queues at banks in Padang National day after day. Many of them were there at 3 a.m. waiting to queue in line. The e-hailers, the Grabs and the Maxims, they are also crying foul. They did not receive the assistance from the Sarawak government. Yet now the government is talking about the second payment a few weeks ago. They have received from that federal the assistance. So which is the list that the state government is going to use now? The old one or the new list? They want to know, but they don't know where to turn to. The government is encouraging our people to visit our local tourist spot, but our local tour companies are on the verge of going bankrupt, as they cannot sustain anymore and have to lay off their workers. Tour buses, their tour guides are in trouble. The government must help them by giving them help packages with sufficient funding so that they can survive these difficult times, and only when they can operate, and only then they can operate to see our local attractions. Another thing is when the government shut down a certain area, like for 2 weeks, because a worker in a particular shop in that area had contracted COVID. Or even the CMCO, which is being implemented today in Kuching until the 22nd of November. The government must give funding to the shops and other activities, being ordered to shut down, so that they can at least pay the employees and other expenses. This is because once you shut that area down, the customers coming are very few. So we cannot expect them to make money with so few customers. So while on the other hand, they will have to pay out, and they cannot stand the losses. That's why the government needs to help them. Don't just order them to shut down and then leave them alone. We are in a pandemic. We need to help those in trouble. When MCO was first implemented in our state in March, so many people from my constituency and neighboring constituencies who are working in my constituency have come to us for food packages. We as opposition members gave as much as we could. We tried to raise funds and we gave out food packages of rice, eggs, cooking oil, etc., etc. But so many more are asking for the food packages. But we have no more resources. So government should give us also the fund so that we can give to those who have come to us. This way we can reach out to all those who need help. This is where more people can come in together to work together and to help to distribute. And we can be more thorough in that way, such that no one is left hungry or is left out during these difficult times. Mr. Speaker, like I said earlier, we are fighting a war. We need to come together, to work together, to fight our common enemy, to save our people. So let's work hand in hand, in this case, for the sake of the lives of the people of Sarawak. And with that, I yield, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak?
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Member for Moratuang.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Congratulations on your reappointment. Now, I would like to just ask, as a matter of clarification maybe, from Tanjung Batu, Yang Berhormat. Now, if you put all these accusation or allegation across to this August House, some people had missed all the assistance that they are supposed to receive. Could you provide data, yeah, and support your argument, yeah, with facts and figures, so that it wouldn't look as if it's just a political statement? I'm sure Yang Berhormat Menteri and the state government would be what I call gracious enough to look into all these details if there are any. Now, as you can see from the budget speech of Yang Berhormat Ketua Menteri this morning, there are enormous support from the state government. Well, we cannot satisfy everybody, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I suppose the state government has done something more than 9. And it's just a matter of putting the bits and pieces so that we will not lose sight of those who are in need. And I believe this GPS government, which has proven itself, yeah, to be capable, responsible, and people-centric. They have done so much since the pandemic started. What was left also by the PH government at the federal level is taken up by the PN government, PN plus GPS, to be correct, government, very well. They have undertaken what was not expected before. And I believe if steps were taken before that, before the changeover of government at the federal level, things could have been what I call well under control. But then, unfortunately, yeah, there were lackluster effort by the previous government at the federal level, and it was the present government at the federal level and government at the present time, and also the state GPS government has taken taken all these pieces up and move on. And you can see a lot of lives being saved. But with your remark just now, if it's not rebutted, if it's not supported with facts and figures, it seems, well, we have done nothing. That's not fair, isn't it? So better for all to see that we get all these facts right. And I'm sure the ministry, in the person of the minister, in the person of Yang Berhormat DCM, Dr. Betong, sorry, Bukit Saban, would give you all the best answers and responses that you need. Thank you very much.
Member for Pending.
Thank you, Tuan Speaker, for allowing me to participate in the debate of the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 Bill 2020. Tuan Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic crisis has caused many to lose their jobs, lost income, and unable to put food on the table for the family. During the MCO, in order to cushion of the impact of coronavirus-19 pandemic, the Sarawak government had announced the scheme Bantuan Khas Sarawakku Sayang, BKSS, for eligible Sarawakians from the lower income group, or what is commonly known as the B40 group, whereby one of the benefits is the monthly cash assistance of 250 to be paid out for 6 months starting from 15 April. To the recipients, this is a welcoming move and will at least help them in some ways. But unfortunately, the state GPS government did not fully fulfill the promises made. There are many who either not receive a cent of BKSS or only receive partial payment of 1 or 2 months. In addition, there are also another group who met the eligibility criteria but failed to be included in the BKSS name list. Despite their submission of appeals in April or May, no outcome has been met as at today by the state government concerning the appeal. The appeal results are still not out. It is quite disappointing to note that after 8 months from the date of appeal, the online results remain stagnant since then and show that the appeal status is still in verification stage. How could it be possible to take 8 months to verify the appeal cases? The people who have yet to receive their BKSS money are at a loss of where to find the answers. Even the Tali Himmat hotline 555-999 is not helpful either. The callers were told by the hotline operators that whatever details they have seen online is also the same as what they, the hotline operators, saw. The other standard answer given to the callers usually was that the state government has not given them any indication or made any announcement yet as to when the money will be made available for disbursement, and the callers were asked to wait. In other words, there were no answers to people's queries. We are now entering the month of November, just less than 2 months to end the roller coaster year 2020. So how much longer does the state government wish to make the people continue waiting for their BKSS assistance, which they truly deserve? Please stop making the people to wait for nothing. It will only make the people angrier. Because a promise has been made and many are desperate due to their losing jobs or pay cut. The lower income group is the one that suffers the most in such situation. The most frustrating thing for them is that when they try to seek clarification and look for help, there is no way to get answers. There is also no service counter made available to take public queries. Unlike the Bantuan Prihatin National Federal Government Scheme, there is a proper online system set out where public can check the detailed status of their applications, including the banking details as to when and whether the money had successfully deposited or not. As for the rejected applications, reasons will also be made known. Besides, the public can access Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri, where counters were set up to handle public queries and accept physical applications or appeals. Tuan Speaker, if Sarawak government decides to lend a helping hand to the B40 group, please do so properly. Be sincere and not to do things alang-alang or half-hearted manner. Never think that Sarawakians are easy to cheat. Therefore, I urge the state government to immediately set up a proper system and service counter to deal with BKSS matters. Tell the public where to go, who to approach for help. Do not make the public wait in limbo. I would like to know which department and who can I seek help from. Please make it clear in this August House. If I am the YB and I try to get answers from all the departments and looking for the right person to speak to, and I cannot access that and I couldn't get the answers. So what happened to all those on the street, the lay people on the street? They are even more helpless than us. Besides, announcement from the state government should be made sooner regarding the appeal cases, which are still pending verification. Do let the appellants know the outcome of their appeal. And for those who succeeded in their appeal, when are they going to receive the money? What about those who were paid partially? How much longer they are supposed to wait for the money to be paid out to them? Allow me to say this. When the state government gives the appellants a chance to appeal, thinking that it will help to pacify their anger, but mind you, it will make the people angrier when they are made to wait in vain. As for BKSS to assist the hawkers, there are some appeal cases which are still pending approval from the state government. we were given to understand that all the appeal from the hawkers had been submitted to Ministry of Local Government and Housing. When we asked MBKS about the status for one of the cases, MBKS is clueless too and can't provide any specific answers to it. I hope that the Honourable Member for Batu Kawa, who is the Minister for Local Government and Housing, do not sit on this issue but solve it immediately. Why make everything hanging and not giving any decisive answer to it? It is very disappointing to see the way the Sarawak government handling the BKSS issue. It makes people wonder if there is any sincerity at all from the state government to help them. In addition, when Yang Amat Berhormat Chief Minister announced the BKSS 4.0 on 23rd October 2020, and in today's budget speech, he mentioned about extending the discount for electricity bill for another 3 months from October to December. But we have received feedback from the ground that the discounted subsidy or discounted rate from the state government is not reflected in SESCO October bill. It just doesn't make sense. When Yang Amat Berhormat could announce to the whole world regarding the extension of the initiative to be extended till December, why is it that SESCO couldn't state the discounted amount in the bill? Isn't this a continuation of the earlier policies? The answer given by SESCO Hotline Call Center is, SESCO is still waiting for confirmation on the discounted rate from the Ministry of Utilities. How can that be possible if Yang Amat Berhormat Chief Minister already made the announcement? How can our Yang Amat Berhormat Chief Minister announce something which is not finalized yet? Tuan Speaker, if Sarawak GPS government is a responsible and caring government, then don't talk like hot air only, or don't be like ting kosong. Why talk about BKSS 4.0 when Sarawak government cannot even fully fulfill what had been promised in BKSS 1.0? It seems that the Sarawak GPS government is not well prepared and does not even equip with the necessary resources to fully implement all the BKSS initiative and benefits for the people as promised. The Sarawak GPS government has every now and then often boast of getting back the sales tax money from Petronas and other oil companies and gloat over the control of the oil and gas rights. Definitely, the state must have money rolling in by the millions daily. So may I ask, why is it so difficult to give the rakyat all the incentives as promised? Yang Amat Berhormat Chief Minister had even quoted the late Adnan by saying in his budget speech today, promises made, promises kept. Janji mestilah ditepati. So, do what had been said. Don't just do lip service and ended up as janji dicapati atau janji dilembui. Tuan Speaker, this BKSS issue cannot be taken lightly and must be solved without further delay, as the COVID-19 pandemic is hitting hard on the people's livelihood. With this observation, I conclude. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Tupong.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Pertama Speaker kerana memberi ruang dan peluang kepada saya untuk membahas temporary measures for reducing the impact of COVID-19 Bill 2020. Jadi kita ingat pada tahun ini, tahun 2020, bermula dengan pelbagai peristiwa yang begitu menarik sekali dan mencabar yang telah menjejaskan kehidupan seharian kita. Pada bulan Februari yang lepas, di mana ketika kes COVID sedang tersebar dan meningkat dengan tingginya, Kerajaan Persekutuan telah lumpuh akibat peletakan jawatan Perdana Menteri ketika itu. Difahamkan beliau meletak jawatan kerana perbalahan dalam Majlis Presiden PH yang mendesak Perdana Menteri ketika itu untuk menyerahkan jawatannya kepada suksesor beliau. Jadi ketika itu pandemik COVID sedang mula tersebar dan perlu dibendung. isu utama yang dibincangkan dalam Majlis Presiden PH ketika itu adalah peralihan kuasa Perdana Menteri sampai bergaduh sehingga kan Perdana Menteri meletak jawatan. Jadi mungkin itu sudah menjadi budaya PH, iaitu untuk membentingkan jawatan mereka dulu sebelum kepentingan masyarakat. Tetapi negara kita bernasib baik kerana mempunyai seorang pemimpin seperti Duli Yang Maha Mulia yang di-Pertuan Agong, yang mana beliau menggunakan kebijaksanaan beliau untuk menyelesaikan kemelut negara akibat ketidakstabilan politik tersebut. Saya ingin menjunjung kasih kepada Duli Yang Maha Mulia yang di-Pertuan Agong di atas tindakan beliau menyelesaikan kemelut yang berlaku itu. Saya juga ingin mengambil kesempatan ini mengucap setinggi-tinggi terima kasih dan tahniah kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri kita Abang Jo di atas visi dan keputusan beliau suatu ketika dahulu untuk membentuk GPS dan keluar daripada Barisan Nasional. Ternyata sekali keputusan itu adalah keputusan yang terbaik dalam memberi hak dan kuasa tersendiri kepada rakyat Sarawak. Kerana sewaktu kemelut negara ketika itu, parti GPS adalah salah sebuah parti yang dirujuk oleh Duli Yang Maha Mulia yang di-Pertuan Agong sebelum membuat tindakan dan keputusan. Jika kita masih bernaung di bawah Barisan Nasional, sudah tentu hanya BN Pusat yang hanya dirujuk dalam membuat keputusan. Jadi sekarang ini bermakna kita memainkan peranan yang lebih besar dalam hala tuju pembentukan kerajaan persekutuan. Tahniah dan terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri Abang Jo kita. Jadi tanggungjawab utama kerajaan yang baru dibentuk ketika itu adalah untuk mengurus pandemik COVID-19 yang telah melanda seluruh dunia. Pelbagai cabaran telah kita tembuhi dengan pandemik ini. Ketika itu seluruh dunia berhadapan dengan cabaran baru yang tidak pernah mereka tempuhi sebelum ini. Kehidupan rakyat terjejas dari segi kebajikan, ekonomi, pendidikan, sosial, agama dan seluruh norma kehidupan terjejas. Ketika itu negara kita tertakluk kepada Akta Pencegahan dan Kawalan Penyakit Berjangkit dalam mengurus dan menangani cabaran ini, kecuali Sarawak. Sarawak mempunyai ordinan kita sendiri bagi kesihatan dan ini juga salah satu bukti kuasa autonomi perundangan negeri kita sendiri. Jadi dengan kuasa perundangan yang ada pada negeri kita, Kerajaan Negeri Sarawak melalui SDMC ataupun State Disaster Management Committee telah berjaya mengurus pandemik COVID-19 ini mengikut keperluan dan acuan negeri kita sendiri. Satu cabaran dan perkara baru, tetapi ianya telah berjaya kita urus dan tangani daripada first wave of the pandemic. Tahniah dan terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri Abang Jo dan pengurusi SDMC, Yang Berhormat Dato' Ahmad Douglas Ugah serta seluruh ahli SDMC. Dan tahniah dan terima kasih juga kepada seluruh frontliners kita yang telah berkorban demi keselamatan kita semua. Saya masih ingat ketika itu lebih kurang 10,000 pelajar-pelajar, guru-guru dan anak Sarawak di Semenanjung yang kita bantu daripada segi bekalan makanan, kewangan, kediaman dan membawa mereka balik ke kampung halaman mereka ketika itu. Jumlah 10,000 ini saya ada nama-nama mereka. Saya tidak plug off the air seperti yang disebut oleh rakan-rakan ahli berhormat daripada sebelah tadi. Kata ada yang komplain, ada yang tak komplain. Kalau ada yang komplain, lebih baik kita bagi nama kepada the relevant authority supaya kita dapat selesaikan masalah. Ketika mana ahli-ahli keluarga mereka ini sedang risau tentang keselamatan dan kebajikan ahli keluarga mereka di Semenanjung ketika PKP, kerajaan negeri dan kerajaan persekutuan dengan kerjasama NGO seperti Sarawak Volunteers telah berjaya membawa mereka pulang ke pangkuan keluarga mereka. Selain itu juga bantuan makanan kepada mereka yang memerlukan di seluruh Sarawak juga telah dilaksanakan oleh kerajaan GPS. Ya, kita ada mendengar ada juga beberapa keluarga yang tidak mendapat bekalan makanan. Seperti yang saya nyatakan tadi, ini adalah satu cabaran yang baru, cabaran yang berlainan sama sekali. Jika kita ada aduan yang tersebut, elok kita duduk bersama untuk memikirkan cara penyelesaiannya. Selepas itu, menyedari bahawa keadaan ekonomi masyarakat terjejas, kerajaan telah mengambil pelbagai inisiatif yang menekankan kepada kebajikan rakyat Sarawak seperti diskaun kepada bil utility, insentif khas kepada frontliners, diskaun sewa Housing Development Corporation, diskaun di gerai-gerai premis kerajaan, bantuan tunai untuk B40, pemberian pelitup muka secara percuma dan banyak lagi. Jadi, Yang Berhormat Datuk Amar Speaker, inilah bukti keprihatinan kerajaan GPS terhadap anak Sarawak. Ini adalah bukti betapa efisiennya dan bukti polisi kerajaan GPS dalam memberi keutamaan kepada rakyat Sarawak. BKSS ataupun Bantuan Khas Sarawak Aku Sayang 1 hingga ke BKSS 4.0, kesemuanya menekankan kepada kebajikan rakyat. Ini adalah polisi yang begitu baik sekali yang diperkenalkan oleh Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri kita. Jadi sudah tentu kita memerlukan kerjasama daripada semua lapisan implementation agency untuk memastikan polisi yang baik ini dapat kita laksanakan dengan baik. Polisi yang begitu baik dalam keadaan kecemasan yang tidak kita duga ketika itu sudah tentu ada cabarannya sedikit dalam pelaksanaannya dari segi teknikalnya. Inilah bukti Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri Abang Jo amat prihatin dan mengutamakan kebajikan rakyat first, Sarawak first dari segalanya. Jadi yang di sebelah itu tak payahlah nak mengajar ataupun nak mengusulkan seperti PRN tidak boleh diadakan dalam masa terdekat demi keselamatan rakyat. Kerana kita yakin bahawa Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri Abang Jo sememangnya mengutamakan rakyat dalam membuat apa jua keputusan. Siknya nak molah keputusan tak tentu tuan. Jadi minta maaflah yang di sebelah itu untuk klaim kredit seolah-olah mereka mengambil berat tentang rakyat supaya tidak diadakan PRN gagal. Kalau mereka mengambil berat, sudah tentu projek-projek rakyat tidak dibatalkan ketika mereka memerintah satu ketika dulu. Yang Berhormat Datuk Amar Speaker, kita juga sedar bahawa tempoh DUN kita akan tamat pada bulan Jun 2020 dan pada ketika itu kita tiada pilihan tetapi untuk mengadakan PRN. Tetapi apa yang lebih penting sekarang adalah untuk rakyat berganding bahu dan bekerjasama dengan kerajaan untuk menentang COVID-19 ini demi kesejahteraan semua. Bukannya mentafsir bila PRN, bukannya untuk merebut jawatan, bukannya untuk mendakwa ada numbers untuk membentuk kerajaan seperti pimpinan PKR yang buat baru-baru ini yang telah menjejaskan kestabilan politik, kestabilan stok market ketika itu tetapi tiada menghujungnya. Dan dalam Dewan ini pun saya rasa saya dah lagi lah wakil daripada parti. Bukan sahaja rakyat sudah tidak yakin dengan kepimpinan parti tersebut sehingga kan pimpinan mereka pun sudah tidak yakin dengan parti tersebut. Yang Berhormat Datuk Amar Speaker, peruntukan yang besar telah diperuntukkan untuk mengawal pandemik COVID-19 dan seterusnya menjaga kebajikan rakyat akibat pandemik ini dan untuk memastikan kelangsungan ekonomi kita tidak terjejas dalam jangka masa pendek dan jangka masa panjang. Kita bernasib baik kerana negeri Sarawak mempunyai reserve yang begitu tinggi disebabkan oleh kebijaksanaan pimpinan kita yang lalu dalam mentadbir negeri. Dan sekarang ini kita mempunyai pendapatan yang begitu tinggi sekali juga disebabkan oleh kebijaksanaan pimpinan kita yang sekarang dalam menstrukturkan pendapatan negeri kita. Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri mengambil pendekatan revenue engineering dan pentadbiran kewangan negeri kita. Baru-baru ini hasil kerja keras tim Sarawak Abang Jo kita telah menerima hasil SST daripada Petronas yang berjumlah 2.9 bilion. Itu memang patut kita banggakan dan itu memang patut kita nyatakan kepada keseluruhan rakyat kita. Kerana ini adalah semua hasil dan ilham usaha kerjasama keras semua. Bukannya satu perkara yang mudah untuk mendapat hasilan ini. Kalau nak sebut memanglah mudah untuk berjanji. Kita masih ingat lagi ahli daripada Kota Sentosa pernah berjanji jika menjadi kerajaan persekutuan maka royalty 20% akan terus diberikan Niat itu baik. Niat itu baik, kita tahu, tetapi bukannya mudah untuk menyatakan dan melaksanakan. Ianya memang tidak mudah untuk dilaksanakan. Ianya memerlukan kebijaksanaan dan pengalaman dalam pentadbiran kerajaan. Kebijaksanaan dan pengalaman yang ada pada kerajaan GPS. Jadi sebab itulah sekali lagi saya ingin mengucapkan setinggi-tinggi terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri kita dan pengerusi SDMC serta seluruh ahli jawatan kuasa SDMC dan frontliners kerana telah bekerja keras untuk memastikan keselamatan masyarakat kita di Sarawak. Sekian, wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Saya mohon menyokong.
Member for Telang Usam.
Terima kasih Dato' Ahmad Speaker, dan juga ucapkan congratulations on your reappointment as our August House Speaker. I will go straight to the point. Despite the limited time for me to scrutinize the bill and its purposes, I feel that the bill ought to get the full support of this August House. Because to me, the bill means nothing other than doing good for our state and our people. COVID-19 pandemic is something no one or no human being could anticipate to come. The world and our state was caught. Therefore, as a concerned and responsible state government, the state government is duty-bound to do something to protect our people, Sarawakian. Therefore, this bill, which have also listed few ordinances that might be affected, ought to be supported. And I looked through, there are few ordinances that might affect my people of Telangusan. So this temporary measure ought to be put in place just in case, in times of need. Therefore, I stand up to support the bill, Dato' Ahmad Speaker. Thank you.
Member for Kota Sentosa.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this chance to debate on the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019, Bill 2020. Before I start, I talk about the bill, let me put on record here our sincere thanks to the frontliners in the help and in the combat for this against this COVID-19 bill. And also, I would like to personally express my gratitude to Yang Amat Berhormat, Deputy Chief Minister, for the assistance and the tireless effort that he has put into coordinating the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Like what has been mentioned by the Honourable Member for Tanjong Batu, this is a war against humanity, humankind. It's a crisis of the humankind as a whole. And it is for us to work together to combat and to fight against this pandemic. As such, there shouldn't be any partisan approach or attitude in the formulation of policies and measures when it comes to the fight against COVID-19. We here from DAP and Pakatan Harapan, though we are the opposition, will give our fullest support to the government's effort in the fight against this pandemic. That goes without saying. But there are certain policies which leave much to be desired, and one of which is the allocations that has been granted earlier this year in March April, whereby allocations were given to all the Wakil Rakyats, their service center, to manage giving out food aids in light of the lockdown that was imposed earlier this year. Though it was said that allocations were given to all the Wakil Rakyats, but the management of the allocation were not to be fairly implemented. Those areas where the Wakil Rakyats were from the opposition, the DAP, at that time still PKR, and even PSB, Yang Berhormat Bawang Asan is here to verify. The allocation which was supposed to be allocated for our areas were not to be managed by our service center. They were channeled to the nearby, the adjacent service centers of the Wakil Rakyat to manage this fund. Mr. Speaker, we have a very good system here, whereby the whole states were divided into 82 states constituencies, and those constituencies were respectively represented by their Wakil Rakyats.
Are you taking point from Telang Usang?
Telang Usang. Yes.
Telian. Actually, the allocation was not given to the Wakil Rakyat of Pusat Khidmat, but given to Jawatan Kuasa Bencana Bahagian, which is chaired by Resident Office. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, can you switch on the mic? Thank you. It was the directive of the state government that the purchase of the items, the distribution of those those food items can be done by the service center of the nominated Wakil Rakyats, and to claim from the committee, the disaster committee. And those service center nominated were all from the GPS. And even for areas where allocation is supposed to be for my areas, for instance, Kota Sentosa, the purchase of the goods, of the items, food items, of those will be managed by Batukawa Service Center. Mr. Speaker, like what I've said just now, we have a very good system whereby the state is divided into 82 constituencies. Each constituency, the representative thereof, must have known their constituency very well to be elected as their representative. Then why wouldn't the state, the YB, the Wakil Rakyat, be the best person to know their constituency and to manage the purchase and allocation of food aid to the people in their constituency? But why the discrimination? Why the discrimination? Mr. Speaker, I think my suggestion is that what is done is done. There is something that is not fair, something that will hamper the government's effort to help the Rakyat, because you get another Wakil Rakyat, his service center, to manage the allocation, the distribution of food aids for the areas of another Wakil Rakyat. That is for another area. That will reduce the efficiency thereof. The second point which I would like to highlight here is that from the reading of the bill here, I noticed that the emphasis is on the extension of time for the performance of the statutory duties of the authorities. But there is a lack of emphasis on the performance of the duty on the part of the people under some of the ordinances. Let me give an example of this, like business name registry or trade license. Trade license, every year the traders have to pay their trade licenses. And in Kuching, the place for payment is the Inland Revenue Office, which is in Jalan Padungan. Because of the COVID pandemic, the IRD office, they only issue 100 numbers or 150 numbers every day. So a lot of traders who wants to renew their trade licenses, they have to go and queue up early. After 100 or 150, it could have been increased to 150. But when I received the complaints from the one of my constituents, it was only 100 clients per day. So when the number reached 100, the counter will not issue any more numbers. So those who wants to pay their trade licenses, they have to go and queue the next day, and they have to queue out earlier in order to get the number to renew their trade licenses. And if their trade licenses have expired, they could be fined. Likewise, for payment of assessment rates under the Local Authority Act, assessment of rates, yes, there is some discount on the assessment. However, the time to pay must be, it is still strictly enforced. If you pay late, you will be imposed with fine, penalty, 1% per month for the late payment. So this COVID-19 bill that is tabled by Yang Amat Berhormat, Deputy Chief Minister, did not make provision for such situation. Most of the provisions that was provided, I believe, is from the perspective of the government, whereby authorities are under the law bound to perform certain acts, have certain meetings, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they could not do it in time. Therefore, the extension of time were allowed under this bill. But from the people's perspective, where they are under certain laws, they have to perform certain duties or pay certain dues or rates or tax to the government, I think this bill did not cover. Therefore, I'll urge Yang Amat Berhormat to look into this aspect and see whether anyone is left out, any aspect, any laws or any ordinances is left out. If so, look into it and make provisions for that. We can come back another day. Mr. Speaker, let me speak a bit on also the legitimacy of our authority here. Yes, we have the constitution to give authority of the Dun to make laws, for the government of the day to make laws. But legitimacy in terms of constitutional provision is just on the paper, effective on the paper, or legal on the paper. But from the people's point of view, for the ordinary people's point of view, legitimacies has to come with fairness in our law. That is where people start to respect the law and start to comply strictly with the law. I was very attracted to a news, intrigued by a news that I've read somewhere a few days ago, whereby it was reported that the Prime Minister of New Zealand was rejected from a cafe because of the rules or the law that she implemented. Why? There was a law about the maximum capacity of a cafe. and that when she visited this cafe, she wants to go in to buy a cup of coffee. The cafe owner rejected her, said that you cannot come in because we have reached our maximum capacity. So she turned away, not being offended at all. That is the extent of the respect of the law and the standard application of the law in countries like New Zealand. But whether in our country there is such a uniform application, fair application across the board. I would like to make specific reference to the standard operating procedure, the SOPs, applicable for those who return from West Malaysia to Sarawak. I understand that there are two sets of SOPs, one for those who are on official duties and one for the ordinary citizens. For those who are on official duties, they need to produce the letter of authorization, letter of work, and they can do a COVID test 3 days before they come into the state, and after they perform their duty, they can leave. Or they are not subject to the 14 days quarantine. But for the ordinary citizens, they are subject to 14 days quarantine. Mr. Speaker, I understand that there is a need for certain officials to come in, certain even VIPs to come in to perform their official duties. But it doesn't augur well with the people, with the ordinary people, whereby there is two sets of SOPs, one applicable particularly to the politicians and one applicable to the ordinary rakyats. I think in this pandemic, one of the anger that was felt and strongly expressed by the rakyat is the special treatment to VIPs, special treatment to politicians, where the COVID-19 virus doesn't differentiate your position and your status in the society. So my suggestion is that if the SDMC finds that the SOPs applicable to officers coming in to perform their official duties, such SOP is safe for the containment of the spread of the virus, then such SOP should also be equally applicable to the ordinary citizens of the country. If the politicians or the officers are allowed to do their COVID test 3 days before they come in, and that test result is applicable to exempt them from the 14 days quarantine, then equally, I think ordinary people on the street, they can also do the same COVID test 3 days before they come into Sarawak. Mr. Speaker, the imposition of the 14 days quarantine will take its toll on our economy, definitely. And though we are working very hard, stretching our resources to help revive economy, but if that 14-day quarantine were to apply for a longer period after the 22nd of November, it is going to hurt our economy very badly. And no amount of money that is channeled to help the business sector can help to recover or save our economy if this 14-day quarantine were to be applied. But if the SDMC views that the exemptions given to the officers or the VIPs or the politicians are safe enough to prevent the spread of the pandemic, then equally apply it to those ordinary people who wish to come to Sarawak to equally adopt the same SOP. Yes, please.
Any other member?
Can I ask a question from Yang Muhammad? Can you recall, have you ever asked for exemption before?
Mr. Speaker, and Yamat Bromat, DCM, I've asked for exemption before. Yes, but it was exemption according to the SOP set down by SDMC. And for this time, even for this time, the exemption, the 14-day exemption, you can, maybe you can reply me later. For this time, the 14 days exemption, I chose, and DAP MPs, all of us chose to abide by the SOP that is followed by all the ordinary citizens. Well, what I'm saying is that, Mr. Speaker, before I go into this issue, I've mentioned the legitimacy of your authority. The legitimacy of the authority from the eyes of the Rakyat. If you have, so long as you have two SOPs, one applicable to the ordinary people, one applicable to the politicians or those having positions, that legitimacy is undermined. That legitimacy is compromised. And we have among here who has been to KL within the 14 days period attending this Dun sitting. So, Mr. Speaker, may I put on record here, yes, I'm entitled under the SDMC SOP to attend the parliament, to attend the budget session, and come back and attend this Dun. But I view that if the people can go through all that trouble of having to go through the 14-day quarantine, I think why can't politicians do that? But if SDMC is of the view that the SOP applicable to government officers and the politicians is safe enough, why can't it be applicable to the ordinary people on the street? Let us have one standard. That's what you call standard operating procedure, one standard for all, and that will enhance the legitimacy of our authority,
Hypocrite.
of the government. This is my suggestion, Mr. Speaker. Though I know that the 14 days quarantine is very inconvenient. Yes, but all Sarawakians have to go through that when they come back. Then there's no reason for us to be exempted. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I will go to the last point just to reply on Tupong. What he said just now, bukan untuk mentafsir pilihan raya. But I don't know what is, who is the one who is bringing out the issue of elections, state election, consistently and insistently. One day he says that the election is near. One day he says that the election is not so near. One day he says that there's no worries, we have our standard operating procedure, we have good SOPs, so election no fear. But the other day he will say that, this election will be next year. I mean, Yamat Brohmat, the Chief Minister, has been talking about election almost every other day. So, Yang Brohmat, Tupong, if you want to have a word of caution or a word of warning for those who kept harping on the elections, state election, and the date of state election, tell it to your Chief Minister. So, Mr. Speaker, I understand that our Dun sitting was supposed to be 8 days. It was shortened to 5 days because of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, you have used much of your time.
Yeah, this is my last point, Mr. Speaker.
No, okay. You have been speaking more than 20 minutes.
You didn't limit the time when you started the debate. Why do you want to limit the time now?
You have spoken more than 20 minutes.
I know, but you didn't limit the time. Some
Member for Layar.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Dato' Mas Speaker kerana memberi peluang saya berdebat dalam temporary measure for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Dato' Amar, member for Bukit Saban, as chairman of SDMC and his team, and also all the frontliners that has been working very hard, keeping this disease at bay, pandemic at bay, and also working hard for all Sarawakian. I must acknowledge the efforts of the federal government, the Sarawak government and the Health Ministry, the Sarawak State Health Department, State Disaster Management Committee, and all the medical and security frontliners in the effort to contain the spread of COVID-19. Central to the strategy of both federal and state governments and health authorities in curbing such spread has been to restrict or control the movement of persons through initially the MCO, CMCO, RMCO, then EMCO. So we understand that today's bill is to have the period also extended as per the bill in Parliament. But to me, maybe this temporary measure should be looked into beyond temporary measure. Maybe we should look into a longer measure in the sense that we should extend the period of our DUN until a safe time to have an election. I know Kota Sentosa brought out the point, and I know CN brought out the point also, but it is important that we don't want to be, I don't have blood in my hands when it comes to, that people get sick because of actions we're doing. If the experience of our fellow Borneo State or Sabah and anything to go by, the impact of COVID-19 on the lives and livelihood of people of Sarawak is likely severe, and the social and democratic fallout would be adverse beyond comprehension. It is thus, Dato' Mas Speaker, that I venture to propose for the consideration of the honourable members of this August House for amendment to the Constitution of the State of Sarawak to extend the term of the DUN beyond the 5 years until it is safe to have an election. Such a proposal is not without precedent, for the clause extending to the terms of the Council NEGERI in 1968 exists still in the Constitution of Sarawak in the form of Clause 3A, Article 21, which was participated by Section 4 of the Federal Constitution Amendment Act 1968, in force since September 1968. If indeed the expression of support for this proposal from the honourable members of both sides of the August House, then perhaps a ministerial motion to such effect would be in order. Because I know, sir, I'm a bit late to submit this whatever motion to you due to the time of when I realized that things are forthcoming. But let me be clear about two things. One, for the sake of the sanctity of the August House, it is paramount that such motion is unanimously and wholly supported by the honourable members, lest even with the most noble of intentions, one would face the accusation of attempting to undermine democracy, which serves as the very foundation and pillar of this August House. Two, such motion of this August House would come to naught if we, from both aisles of the August House, do not seek its approval from our respective party, colleagues, and who are members of the Federal Parliament. If, however, such an amendment to the Federal Constitution is forthcoming, then we in this August House can act accordingly to effect such amendment into state law. Bearing in mind my oath of office and with humility by such proposal, let the record of this August House show that the GPS government, led by the Honourable Chief Minister, is willing to consider all means, short of an emergency, towards preserving the lives and livelihood of the people of Sarawak, which is the very essence of democracy. Sarawak is us. We are Sarawak. We must preserve Sarawak. Our love for Sarawak is beyond anything that divides us. Save Sarawak, jaga Sarawak, into Sarawak. I beg to support. Thank you, sir.
Member for Baklalan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to debate on these temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 is not only a global pandemic,
and public health crisis. It has also severely affected the global economy and financial markets, including Malaysia and Sarawak. Significant reduction in income, a rise in unemployment, and disruption in the transportation, service and manufacturing industries are among the consequences of the disease mitigation measures that have been implemented in many countries. It has become clear, Mr. Speaker, that most governments in the world underestimated the risk of rapid COVID-19 spread and were mostly reactive in their crisis response. As disease outbreaks are not likely to disappear in the near future, proactive international and local actions are required to not only save lives, but also protect economic prosperity. Mr. Speaker, I do recognize, I speak on behalf of PSB here, that there are dual jurisdiction power under the law of Malaysia, that there are different areas covered by the federal and different by the state government. In view of this, Mr. Speaker, we do recognize that, and therefore we appreciate the fact that this bill has been passed, proposed to be passed in this August House, because there are certain areas that are not covered by the laws of the federal government. And that had been mentioned in the speech of the Yang Amat Berhormat the Timbalan Ketua Menteri. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, I would like, on behalf of PSB, to state that we support this bill. And lastly, we would like to put on record our appreciation too for the frontliners and also the SDMC for their best effort so far in combating this pandemic, COVID-19. With that words, Mr. Speaker, we'd like to support this bill. Thank you.
Member for Bukit Asik.
Thank you, Tuan Speaker. I stand here to support what Honourable Member for Pending and Tanjong Batu have said about the implementation of the BKSS. We appreciate the BKSS, but the implementation could be better, and that has to be improved because we do receive a lot of complaints that the eligible recipients have not received it. But since both of them have gone into that, I will not go into this anymore. But one thing that I would like to raise about this bill concern undocumented children who turned 18 during the MCO period from 18 of March until 12 of May. Now, during this period, the government departments were closed and most were all working from home. And due to the mandatory social distancing, the district officers could not meet up with these undocumented children, nor the parents who want to adopt them. These children, therefore, during this time, were not able to apply for guardianship and adoption under the guardianship ordinance or the adoption ordinance, as under our God, and when they turn 18 years old, they are prevented from applying for this adoption and guardianship, and therefore they cannot apply for citizenship under Article 15A. Now, what's happening to all these children? These children are neither here nor there. Now, I propose, Tuan Speaker, that since this bill does not actually mention or provide for these two ordinances at all, what's going to happen to all these children? There are some children who turn 18 during this period of time. They are now caught by this MCO. They are now caught from applying for guardianship and or adoption. They're neither here nor there. I propose, Tuan Speaker, that this Section 6 of this bill to include these two ordinances, the guardianship ordinance and the adoption ordinance, to enable the officers from district office and even the court to accept applications for those children who turn 18 during the MCO time. So, Tuan Speaker, I ask the Honourable Minister to look into this. Thank you.
Any other honourable member wishes to speak? Member for Batu Ketang.
Thank you very much, Dato' Ahmad Speaker, for the honor to debate these temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020 by our Honorable Deputy CM N37 Bukit Saman. First of all, I must congratulate our Chief Minister, Dato' Patenggi Abang Johari, our Deputy Chief Minister, Dato' Ahmad Douglas Uga, and our local government minister, Dato' Sri Dr. Sim Kui Hien, for doing a splendid job in controlling COVID-19 pandemic in Sarawak. Much respect and kudos to the Sarawak Disaster Management Committee team and our brave doctors, nurses, and the medical support groups who are fighting COVID-19 on a daily basis from the front lines. As COVID-19 rages on, we in Sarawak are grateful that we do not have as many cases as in Sabah and West Malaysia. We pray that such a situation will continue for us Sarawakians. Recently, I went to a mass swabbing of COVID-19 Kampong Haji Baki to give my moral support for the frontliners and the people who voluntarily came forward to be tested. And I would like to share with you my experience. The frontliners were clad in PPE, personal protective equipment, and had many layers of gloves on. I know it must be very uncomfortable and hot under all that protective gear. These frontliners are indeed our unsung heroes. We should salute them and be proud of them for their diligent hard work, putting their work first to save lives and to prevent further spread of this pandemic. The PPE equipment they brought into work to lessen the burden of the people shows their high commitment to their jobs. They were there just because one or two persons started to be tested positive for COVID. In my own experience, I feel so touched and appreciative of what all the frontliners and volunteers have been doing for my Kampong Haji Baki community. And I'm especially thankful to Rela, Bomba, and not forgetting volunteers, the Tua Kampong, Penghulu, and other teams, NGOs who help with food distribution and responses to queries. The police who look after the roadblocks 24 hours a day deserve special mention here. We are all grateful for everyone's hard work, and we know that the number of COVID cases are kept low because of their dedication and professionalism. I must admit, after hearing what our members from Pending, honorable members from Pending, Kota Sentosa, and from Tanjung Batu, there was no one solution that can solve everything. We cannot solve everything. But I would like to say here that my Kampong Haji Baki experience, after seeing how Kampong Haji Baki folks were doing during their lockdown, is not just money alone that solves all the problem. I must thank them for their cooperation to stay at home, to help themselves and everyone around them in order to stop this virus, their commitment to do so. I also wish to take the opportunity to thank the many kind-hearted people in Kuching who have helped by contributing in cash and in kind to assist the people in Kampong Haji Baki. I have never been more amazed and touched by the amount of food and aid that has been pouring into Haji Baki, even right now as I'm talking to you, to all of you. The assistance, the food. And so the people of Haji Baki is very lucky to have all this help, apart from help from the government. And in these 14 days, there is no money from the government to be given to the people. But instead, and because there was no money being given to the people, the community, the entire community in Kuching, did their very best. They cared, they showed that they cared and they loved the people in Haji Baki. They came out with all kinds of food to help feed the whole of Haji Baki, 4,200 people. This caring attitude for others has become such a normal practice among us Sarawakians, and especially during tough times like COVID-19 pandemic. We Sarawakians have certainly developed a deep-seated culture of looking one after another, regardless of race or religion. And it is something we should continue to nurture, value, and strive for. And with that, I can't express how important these temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus is at these crucial times. And I support this bill. Thank you very much, Pertama Speaker.
Member for Bawang Asan.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Dato' Ahmad Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about this bill entitled Temporary Measures for Reducing the Impact of Coronavirus Disease 2019 Bill 2020. First of all, I would like to applaud the state government for setting up a special committee under the leadership of Honourable Member for Bukit Sabang, and for the job well done in controlling the spread of the diseases. I also like to applaud the state government for 8 packages rolled out to help the people of Sarawak to tide over the difficult time brought on by this COVID-19 pandemic. As we would recall that there are several aid packages. On March 1st, 2020, the Chief Minister announced RM 1.15 billion Sarawak Sayang Special Assistance Packages, BKSS. On 10th of April 2020, again, the Chief Minister announced a second aid package known as Bantuan Khas Sarawak Sayang, BKSS 20, value at 1.1 billion. Then there is also supplying essential food items, value at 16.4 million to the people or to the needy people of Sarawak. Now, I remember the Chief Minister say on some occasion that he would evaluate and re-evaluate what was given to the people of RM 1.15 billion Sarawak Sayang Special Assistance Package, BKSS, and the 1.1 billion Sarawak Sayang BKSS 20, totaling altogether 2.25 billion. Whether or not the Chief Minister say he would like to evaluate whether or not the aid packages had eased the financial burden of the business community or eased the burden of the businesses, in particular the small and medium enterprises, SME, micro enterprises, as well as hawkers and petty traders. And how many have been able to ensure continuity of their business operation, and how many have benefited from such aid packages. I think it is important for the government to assess or to reassess to what extent the money given out has brought back the intended purposes. In the second aid packages, it was also mentioned that there was interest-free loan of 1 billion ringgit will be made available for the SME. And this financial implication for the state would amount to something like 80.7 million ringgit. We would also like to know the total number of SME throughout the state that are able to derive benefit from this arrangement, and to what extent they have benefited from this loan arrangement. The general feedback from SME is a lot of them, they are not too sure of what criteria there are for them to apply, or what sort of terms and conditions are there for them to comply with before they can successfully obtain the loan. And this is important, I think, for the state government to make sure that the money made available are being made full use of. Then what about the microcredit scheme through the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, Industrial Terminal, and Entrepreneur Development, SARAWAK? This is meat trade. How many, again, have been successful in securing the assistance under this scheme? As mentioned in the initial announcement, there are something like 65,000 paddy traders and hawkers will be offered a special BKSS grant amounting to 1,500 ringgit. And we also like to know the actual number of recipients under this scheme. Out of 65,000 paddy traders and hawkers, how many have received such aid package? The other one, of course, I must also applaud the government for making available the essential foods to be distributed to the needy people, particularly people in the rural area, people who are out of job or who receive half pay and so on. Dr. Amar Speaker, even before the onset of COVID-19, thousands of workers, particularly in the timber and timber-based industries, have been laid off from their work. This is perhaps due to the downturn in the global timber industry, or perhaps due to some of the government timber policies. A lot of the timber operations, sawmill after sawmill, and plywood factories were closed down, leaving thousands of people jobless, mainly the rural people, the Iban people. The livelihood of the people then, of course, has been made unattainable with the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. I know committee under Deputy Chief Minister Dr. Amar Awantenga and under Minister of Welfare, Community, Wellbeing, Women, Family and Childhood Development, Dr. Sri Fatima. This committee was supposed to channel food supplies through district or resident offices, as well as the elected representatives of the people. But along the way, there was this uneven distribution of food not reaching the targeted groups as mentioned by my colleagues here. In other words, food distribution has been somewhat politicized, and so many who need help did not get the help. All I would like to say is this, that since the government has the good intention of giving out aid packages, giving out these essential food items and so on, it is important for the government to evaluate or to re-evaluate the actual benefits the businesses, the people are getting. Because we are here to save life, to save businesses, to save jobs, to make livelihood easier. What was started as a medical health crisis has now become a social-economic crisis. And it is important that the government has to play a very delicate role how to balance the two. Increase business activities leading to greater outbreak of the diseases or greater control of the diseases leading to the downturn of the economy, and this is really a very difficult task to handle. But all in all, this bill is an important bill, and I would like to support this bill. But on the other hand, as I said, I would like the government to evaluate the benefits or the intended purposes of all the 8 packages that are being carried out so that we can do a better job next time around. Who knows? We may need more 8 packages. As you know, in Singapore, they requested the governor of Singapore to allow them to withdraw 100 billion Sing dollars to help the country to turn over the economic crisis brought on by the COVID-19. We may need a lot more 8 packages if this COVID-19 pandemic is going to be prolonged. People lose their jobs, people lose their businesses, and it is our government duty, it is the government duty to make sure that people can keep their jobs, can keep the businesses running, at the same time make their livelihood easier. And with this, Dato' Amar, Yang Berhormat Dato' Amar Speaker, I think this is a good bill and we support the bill. Thank you.
Member for Padungan.
Thank you, Dato' Amar Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to participate in the debate of temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019, Bill 2020. The disease strikes the whole world globally, and it is not the time for us to do politicking. It is a tough time that we all have to go through this together, unitedly and also steadfastly. No one has prepared enough for what we are facing now. Unfortunately, this is a challenge that we have to face. And credit has to be given when it is due, where it is due. I would like to record my gratitude to all the frontliners, including the members and the officers work under SDMC led by Yang Berhormat Deputy Chief Minister, all the medical personnel, government servants, police force, enforcement personnel, social workers, and media personnel. You are all sacrificing for the sake of Sarawak. I thank you all. Also, a gratitude to be recorded for all fellow Sarawakians who has been so cautious and also cooperative in obeying the instruction or SOP pronounced by the state government. And one thing I would like to bring the attention of this August House, particularly SDMC, that I have received a feedback from police authority, PDRM, that the police officers who serve in Sarawak, some of them are not from Sarawak, some of them are from West Malaysia, but they serve in Sarawak. When they come in, they have to go through all the SOPs, including quarantine or tax, 14 days. But they are not fully subsidized as this was provided, and this is provided to all the Sarawakians. For those police officers and all the other federal government servants who are serving Sarawak, I urge the government to provide full subsidy on the testing, screening, and on the quarantine of 14 days. This is only doing justice as they come in, not for other businesses, but they come in to serve Sarawak. On the bill, Dr. Ahmad Speaker, I would like to point out an issue at Section 8. It reads, the minister in charge, the minister charged with the responsibility for any ordinance may, if the minister is of the opinion that any statutory meeting is not possible to be convened, held, or conducted in the manner provided in such ordinance during the period from 18 March 2020 and at the end of the Section 8, by order published in the Gazette, provide for alternative arrangements for such meeting. The keyword is any statutory meeting. If the minister is of the opinion that any statutory meeting is not possible to be convened. I have some reservation on this, and also would like to raise my observation. For the statutory meeting which is not possible to be convened, it could be mean Dewan, as is a statutory body, a statutory meeting. If the minister is of the opinion that it's not possible to be convened, can the executive go into or given power to interfere the legislative power? And this is given, to me, this is the interpretation can go in that is widening the power of executive, which should be added cautiously. And also another issue of whether it is suitable for all the meetings to be convened in alternative arrangement. So I respect the institution of legislative, Dewan Undangan Negeri Sarawak, and I respect the spirit of separation of power, and this should not be interpreted into adversely affecting the spirit of separation of power. This is my observation on Section 8, Dr. Ahmad Speaker. And lastly, I would like to record my gratitude to Minister for Welfare, Community Wellbeing, Women, Family and Childhood Development, who has took the trouble to call me personally during the COVID MCO period. Very kind of you, to check whether the needy people within my constituency has received the material food aid as provided by the state government. And Yang Brahma Minister had called me to ask for the full list so that her officer can double check whether all the person or all the list that I have submitted has been fully covered. In this, I mean, this is a good way forward for all Sarawakians, regardless of our political belief. This should be the way that the government should be more engaging to the rakyat, through the representative, and we can always be cooperation together to make Sarawak a better place for all. Thank you.
Member for Smop.
Terima kasih Dato' Amar Speaker. My one is very short. Actually, I just want to clarify one important fact that that was raised by Yang Berhormat Padungan. As much he appreciated our effort and all things that have been done by our Sarawak Disasters Management Committee, which, trust me, I've seen with my own eyes 7 days a week, almost like 12 hours a day, how our SDMC led by our Deputy Chief Minister, Dato' Ahmad Douglas, lead the whole team dengan penuh susah saya nak describe. It's very difficult to describe how tireless this team work every day and coming up with the report by end of the day. And then sometime, through WhatsApp group, you have to send some messages by midnight, and always have new things happening each day. So it has been summed up by Yang Berhormat Padungan. But what I wish to highlight here is that I want to put on record that with regards to the federal officers, Sarawak state government is the only state government in the whole country that gave 500 incentive to the federal government, those who are working in Sarawak, including those in the uniform. There are 131,000 warga kerja federal here in Sarawak, and they were given a one-off 500 ringgit assistance, which involved the state fund, almost equivalent to 65.5 million ringgit. So actually, I was told by our SS just now, sebenarnya angkanya lebih kurang dalam 65.9 juta ringgit kalau tidak silap saya. Ini penting untuk this is very important for me to put on record, because this is the only state yang sanggup mengeluarkan peruntukan kepada semua warga kerja federal dalam keadaan kita yang sukar ini. Terima kasih.
Any other member? I shall call upon the Honourable Deputy Chief Minister to do the winding up.
Yang Berhormat Dato' Ahmad Speaker, terlebih dahulu saya ingin merakamkan ucapan terima kasih atas segala pandangan, sokongan, kecaman dari ahli-ahli Yang Berhormat mengenai undang-undang temporary measure to reduce impact of coronavirus 2019. I choose not to list all the names, there are 14 of them. We value the suggestion, and I would like once again to reiterate that the objective of the bill, which is to modify the relevant provision in the ordinance referred to in the schedule and to provide ample time for rakyat to exercise their right under respective state law. As mentioned earlier, this bill also aims to address the inability to perform statutory duties, obligation, conduct statutory meeting during imposition of the MCO. Dato' Ahmad Speaker, most of the issues raised by Yang Berhormat are not relevant to this bill. So I am tempted to sit down and let all of you vote. But I think some of the accusation is too heavy not to be answered. Because today, DAP display their color, cheat, lie, and give false information. They make accusation without any facts, and that is false news. And for Yang Berhormat dari Kota Sentosa, he doesn't have any moral right to question our SOP, because we have given him the right, the privilege Berapa hari? I got the date here, in case you forgot. Mana? 2 Oktober, 29 Ogos, 25 Mei. Yes, we follow the SOP, and that SOP is existing until today. So why you question it? You question it because of politics, because you thought tomorrow is election. Janganlah. I also must record my appreciation to members who have recorded their appreciation to SDMC and all the committees and the frontliner. But today I must explain our operation. The Sarawak Disaster Management Committee is not set only by the state government. This is set up according to the Agensi Pengurusan Bencana Negara. At one time, when this COVID first began, it was chaired by Yang Berhormat dari mana Wan Azizah? Timbalan Perdana Menteri tempoh hari. And then that Agensi Pengurusan Bencana Negara give SDMC power under MKN 21. This is not formed by JPS government. This is formed according to the federal government Agensi Pengurusan Bencana Negara. Please understand. Kalau you tak faham, tak perlu buat pandangan. Buat tak faham. And SDMC members is all the resident in the bahagian, all the government agencies, because under MKN 21, SDMC is given the authority to manage the committee, and the members of the committee are make up federal government as well, federal department as well as state, including the resident and the state ministries and the department, including the military, the police, and everybody. And that committee, I start from day zero. If I have the right to object, to refuse, I think I should have refused it. It's a very tough job. The road that we travel has never been traveled by anyone before. It's very, very tough. Our responsibility was very heavy to see that the mechanism, the system, because at that time it's a challenge between health and economic. But we are very lucky because we have a leader like Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Petinggi dari N81 who give us advice and guardian and support. That's how this committee operates. Among those that are coordinated by this committee, because this is what we stress, one is the food, distribution of food. The directive from Kuching, from the SDMC Secretariat is very clear. All the food packages throughout Sarawak are to be channeled through the Divisional Disaster Management Committee. I forgot to inform you the setup. We have the federal Pengurusan Bencana Negara, and here we have SDMC. At a divisional level, we have the Divisional Disaster Management Committee chaired by Tuan Resident. And in that committee include all the relevant agencies, the district office, the police, the welfare, NGOs also in that committee. And they manage all the distribution because we need their feedback. Kuching cannot understand everything on the ground. So that's how they manage, distribute the food, distribute the mask. And for your information, the GPS government, that's why I was very sad. Yang Berhormat dari Pending kata kita cheat. GPS never cheat the people. Apa kaji kita buat, janji kita memang tepati. Proven. Not like your side. Janji di sini. Mana janji? So my advice to you, do not politicize. I agree with Pending tadi. It's a very big issues. Managing this not easy. Pedungan, sorry. I appreciate Pedungan, not Pending. Pending bawa saya gaduh. Pedungan, who understand? This is Pending main tunjuk saya. Because we have a single objective to make sure the curve is being flattened. And Sarawak today, you can see it, that among all of the states in Malaysia, we can be proud that we managed to contain the diseases. Today, we have 4 positive cases, and we hope that will continue to be reduced. But that need the cooperation of each and every one of us, including you from the other side. I'm happy they've been very quiet for a while, but maybe you thought election is tomorrow. That's why I make a lot of noise here today. So please, if you have any issues, refer it to SDMC. Some of you know my handphone. Refer to me. I always respond because we want to serve the best. GPS is committed to provide the best for the people of Sarawak. Apa ketawa? See, GPS have spent almost 1 billion on BKSS, as well as for COVID operation alone. Because sometimes fund is not forthcoming, so we have to do our own operation. Like now, we are building a testing facilities in Limbang to make sure Lawas Limbang people will have the facilities. On the SOP, I think I don't have to explain. This SOP is necessary because sometimes, like judges, they have to come in and out to do cases, and there are issues. Some of the YBs also. It's not a privilege for VVIP as alleged. That is a pure political score. Very mischievous for you to do that, to accuse us on that. On CMCO, I'd like to explain the Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan Mesyuarat. It is no lockdown. So I hope YB dari Buang Hassan faham ataupun it is not a lockdown. It is only for Kuching district where our figure is very high in the last 15 days. So most of the business can carry on. We only close bars, some of the nightclubs and Masha Spala. Sorry if you like to go that place, it's all closed. There's a lot of detail that you mentioned. I don't have the figure here. Maybe we'll do it during our winding up. On the issue raised by Bukit Kota Sentosa tadi, on the business name, ordinance has on the issue of where the registration lambat and so on and so forth. This issue, business name ordinance, has been declared under the federal law. So this under the federal law, under COVID-19 federal law. Similarly, business profession trading license also declared under the federal law. Hence, because this bill only cater for the state laws, as I mentioned, 11 laws just now. For Bukit Asset, on guardianship, we do have our own guardianship ordinance 1958, and upon further checking, we'll look into issue raised if there need to add as suggested. And on issue raised on guardianship and citizenship, also under the federal, this is also under the federal law. On the adoption ordinance, state law, but there's no specific requirement or period stipulated in the ordinance, hence any issue can be addressed via administrative arrangement. So any other issues that I have not responded to will be taken note of by us. And with that, once again, I'd like to thank all members of the August House for their support on this bill. Thank you, sir.
Ahli yang berhormat, the question before the Dewan is that the motions standing in the order paper and the name of the Honourable Deputy Chief Minister, Second Minister for Finance, Minister for Modernization of Agriculture, Native Land and Regional Development, and Honourable Member for Bukit Saban be referred to the Committee of the whole House. As many as are of the opinion who say yes, as many as the opinion saying no, the yes have it, the motion is agreed. The House will now resolve into the Committee of the whole House to consider the bill, which stands committed to the committee. The committee shall now consider the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronary virus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020.
Clauses 1 to 10.
The question is that clauses 1 to 10 be ordered to stand part of the bill. As many as the opinions say yes, as many as contrary opinions say no, the yes have it. Clauses 1 to 10 are ordered to stand part of the bill.
Schedules.
The question is that the schedules are ordered to stand part of the bill. As many as the opinions say yes, as many as contrary opinions say no, the yes have it. The schedules are ordered to stand part of the bill.
Enacting clauses, schedules, and title.
The Dewan shall now resume.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to report that this temporary measure to reduce the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 Bill 2020 has been considered by the Committee of the whole House and agreed to without amendment.
Rang Undang-Undang Kerajaan, bacaan kali yang ketiga. Temporary measure for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Yang berhormat Timbalan Ketua Menteri, Menteri Kewangan Kedua, Menteri Pembangunan Pertanian Tanah Adat dan Pengurusan Wilayah dan Ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri N37 Bukit Saban.
Honourable Speaker, I beg to move that the temporary measures to reduce the impact of coronavirus diseases 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020 be now read a third time and do pass.
Ahli yang berhormat, the question before the Dewan is that the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronary virus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020 be read a third time and do pass. As many as the opinions say yes, as many as contrary opinions say no, the yes have it. The bill is read as third time and passed.
Temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 Bill 2020. Rang Undang-Undang Kerajaan bacaan kali yang kedua, Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020, Yang Berhormat Menteri Kerajaan Tempatan dan Perumahan dan Ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri N14 Batu Kawah.
Dato' Amar Speakers, I beg to move that the Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020 be read the second time. Dato' Amar Speakers, the latest amendment to the Local Authorities Ordinance 1996, Chapter 20, was made in 2013. The amendment came into force on the 1st of January 2014. Since then, there has been no amendment to the ordinance. Therefore, it is considered timely for the Local Authorities Ordinance 1996 to be amended in order to update the provisions in the ordinance to meet the changes and expectations of the present situations. Dato' Amar Speakers, native status for local authorities. Section 131(a) of the Local Ordinance 1996, Chapter 20, hereafter referred to as the Principal Ordinance, give powers to local authority to carry out development either by itself or with other local authorities or person for residential, commercial, industry, or any other undertaking which the local authorities may determine. Therefore, the proposed amendment to Section 3 of the Principal Ordinance will grant native status to all local authorities listed on the first schedule of the Principal Ordinance to enable the local authorities to deal or develop their lands which are classified as native area land, especially in rural local authorities area and for any other relevant purposes stated in the Land Court, Chapter 81, 1985 edition. Dato' Amar Speakers, public safety. Local authorities must ensure that any structure within their respective area is safe to the public. For example, any fence or structure abutting or encroaching into public places that cause danger to the public should be removed. However, the existing provision in the ordinance only allowed local authorities to remove dilapidated fence or structure. The proposed amendment to Section 131(x)(2) of the Principal Ordinance seeks to empower local authorities to remove any fence or structure abutting or encroaching public places that cause danger to the public, irrespective whether it is a dilapidated state or otherwise. Dato' Amar Speakers, things used in commission of an offence. The present provisions of Section 161(a)(1) of the Principal Ordinance only allow seizures, removals, or detention of anything which is used or employed in the conduct of any trade or business when committing an offence. The proposed amendment to Section 161(a)(1) of the Principal Ordinance will allow local authorities to seize, remove, or detain anything used in the commission of an offence and not necessarily the things that are used in the conduct of trade or business. This will enable the local authorities to take action effectively by confiscating, removing, or detaining the things or material used in the commission of an offence. Dato' Amar Speakers, delegation of power. The amendment to Section 165 is to allow the delegation of powers by the minister to any person. This because the current provision allows the delegation of power by the minister only to the permanent secretary or any other public officers. Delegation of power to any person can include any other agencies, statutory bodies, corporate bodies, or other entities to improve efficiency and facilitate the service delivery to the people. Dato' Amar Speakers, power to amend schedules. The proposed amendment to Section 172 and Section 172(a) is to expedite and improve the process of amendment to the third and fourth schedules of the principal ordinance by allowing Majlis Mesyuarat Kerajaan Negeri to amend the third and fourth schedule by notification in the Gazette. I therefore call upon members of this august House to support this view. I beg to move, Dr. Ahmad, Speaker.
Another minister to second.
I beg to second.
Now I shall call upon the honourable members of this House to debate on the second reading of the Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020. But before any member speaks, I wish to emphasize, this is an amendment bill. It is not a principal bill, a principal ordinance. Confine your observation only to the amendment and don't digress by debating on the principal ordinance. Any member? Kota Sentosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to debate in this. In this amendment bill to the local authority ordinance. One of the main purpose of this, one of the main amendment made to the proposed to be made to the principal ordinance is that to give the local authorities the native status in order that the local authorities can enter into development projects for commercial purpose, residential purpose, industrial purpose. For the start, I think it is my view that local authorities are empowered to do the job of the local authorities. And the job of the local authorities is to maintain the public places, the utilities, and the roads, and the drainage, and the proper planning of the areas under the jurisdiction of the local authorities. But it is not the business of the local authority to engage or to enter into development projects for commercial, residential, or even industrial properties. I think this part of the job, development of land, should be left to the private sector. And what is the, why is the government or the local authorities getting themselves involved in all these development projects? As if that those mixed John land is not enough for the local authorities to get involved in these development projects. Now the local authorities want to set their foot onto native land, and the next will be NCR land. So I cannot, and DAP cannot support this amendment. Cannot support this amendment for the mere fact that it is against the main job, the principal job or primary job of the local authority to go into development projects. And now we are here to give them more power, more status to develop native land. So I'm sorry, Batu Kawa, we cannot support this amendment bill. And on the second clause 3 of the amendment bill, just now I was listening to Yang Berhormat Batu Kawa, who says that who in tabling this the amendment says that some of the structure protruding into public areas which constitute some danger to public user. As such, this amendment is required by removing the word dilapidated after the words to remove any. So I take a look at the principal ordinance, which is the local authority ordinance, close at section 131 bracket X bracket 2. Here it reads, to require owner or occupier of any premises to do any of the following acts. And the following acts, which is listed in subparagraph 2, is to remove any dilapidated fence or structure abutting upon any public place, and if such owner or occupier fail to comply with any such request, any authorized officer of the local authority may enter upon the premises and carry out such work, and section 170 shall apply. Now, here in the principal ordinance, it is abutting. To remove any dilapidated fence or structure abutting upon public places. That means join along the borderline. What the Honorable Minister is saying is that protruding into the public place, object that is protruding into the public place ought to be removed, whether it is dilapidated or otherwise. I think to have this amendment bill allowed or approved or passed by this Dewan, in future, if the mayor or the minister in charge is not happy with the way my house fence is built, or is not the color of it, it is not happy, he can just order the removal. In the original ordinance, such power can be invoked only if the fence become dilapidated, which will pose a danger to the public. It may collapse because it is in a dilapidated state. Now, that word dilapidated is removed, will be removed by this amendment bill. It opens up too much of a possibility and exercise of discretion to the local authority to remove my house fence. The color is red color, they don't like it, he wants it to be yellow, like the SUPP color, so he said, no, you take it down. That cannot be allowed. So therefore, I think this clause is also not right, and it is also tabled not the words that is supposed to be taken away, not what was mentioned by the minister when he tabled this bill. It's not protruding. It's not it's not removing the object that is protruding into public places, but abutting. Abutting fences.
Member
so
for Kota Sentosa,
yes.
You are overstretching your imagination.
No. This GPS government is capable of all possibilities. Isn't that one of your slogans? All possibilities. So, Mr. Speaker, we are here to enact laws, and within the laws itself, there must be some check and balance, qualifying condition for the exercise of the discretion and the power of the law, which we are going to entrust on the authorities. And there must be some wisdom of the drafter of the original principal ordinance that to insert the word dilapidated. Now that word is taken away. So I think that I cannot agree, and my colleagues in DAP also cannot agree. Specifically also in respect of the first issue that I've raised, i.e., it is not the local authorities' business to enter into development project. Leave it to the private sector to do it, and Therefore, there's no need for the local authority to be endowed the native status so that they can go into native land and start developing and taking away lands from the native. With that, I object to the amendment bill.
Member for report.
Dato' Amat Speaker, saya bangun untuk menyertai ahli-ahli yang berhormat dalam Dewan yang mulia ini untuk mengambil bahagian dalam pembahasan Rang Undang-Undang bertajuk Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020. Dato' Amat Speaker, adalah tepat masanya untuk kita memperbaiki the Local Authorities Ordinance 1996 untuk sejajar dengan perubahan dan perkembangan arus penguatkuasaan pihak berkuasa tempatan sejak kebelakangan ini. Ruang Undang-Undang Local Authority sangat perlu dikemas kini dan ditambah baik untuk memastikan keberkesanan pelaksanaan samada di peringkat kerajaan, perniagaan dan rakyat Sarawak. Saya percaya sebelum bil ini dibentangkan, pihak kementerian berkaitan sudah membuat kajian mendalam secara terperinci mengenai pintaan yang hendak dilakukan dan telah memperhalusi tata cara tanggungjawab pihak-pihak yang terlibat. Dato' Amat Speaker, dengan pandangan-pandangan yang telah saya huraikan di sini, saya dengan ini menyokong Rang Undang-Undang Local Authority Amendment Bill 2020. Sekian, terima kasih.
Member for Baklalan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me just to debate and just to say a few words on this amendment bill that has been tabled before us. I equally want to echo the same concern that has been said by Yang Berhormat Ketua Sentosa Leon, particularly to the amendment under Section 3 of this bill on the native status that of the local authorities to be changed to native status. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is not much being disclosed in, of course, in this bill itself as to why there is a need to change the status of the local authorities. And before this, what was the problem? Before this amendment, I'm sure there is no problem that the local authorities could implement and execute their duties all these years. But why now there's a change? And the bill itself does not disclose that problem and for that purpose. And therefore, when you propose an amendment to change the status into native, definitely people like me and the natives will be concerned of the impact of it, because that would give that power for the local authorities to get into native customary land, either title or non-title. So even in this bill itself, there is no clear justification for this amendment. On that note alone, Mr. Speaker, I would object, and I just been informed by the President of PSB for Bawang Asan that the PSB would object to this bill itself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other member who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I call the Honourable Minister to do the winding up. Oh, Meradong, member from Meradong.
Thank you, Dato' Amat Speaker, for giving me the chance to say a few words on this local authority amendment bills. Now, regarding the Section 3, I'm not sure about the actual motive behind it, but I'm sure this is only for council purposes, for local authority purposes. When they want to build a public building or a tamu or something like that. So if the local authority actually go into business, go into development, I'm also against it. And regarding the building which encroach into public areas, I disagree with Honourable Member for Kota Sentosa. You are wrong if your building is encroaching into the public area. So it doesn't matter, it's not about your color or whatever, or whether it's dangerous or not. When you are encroaching, you are in the wrong. So I agree with the amendment, and with above observation, I beg to support the bill.
Any other member? I call upon the Honourable Minister to do the winding up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad Speakers. I would like to thank our honourable members from Kota Sentosa, from Berkelanlang, from Report, and from Meradong for debating this bill. The purpose of this bill, actually, a lot of our honourable members here, they really use imagination at best, and partially trying to play to the galleries that is around. And what is important is the local authorities, in order to serve the people, if they find that the area that only have the native land that they need to use for the market or for the library and for what, right? At the moment, they cannot use any of those land. So it's not because we are going to, and the local authority not going to use it for commercial, making money and so on. And for GPS government, we find that if the law is not good, we will continue to improve it. It doesn't mean that if the law is not good and adequate, we will live with it, because our people's interests must come first. Local government is the third tier in the government administration. Being the front line, the local government acts as the voice of the community and the closest government machinery to the local community. There are 26 local authorities in Sarawak to serve and provide services to the community within its area. The amendment of the Local Authorities Amendment Ordinance 1996 reflects the need to ensure that there are continuous, efficient, and effective service delivery to meet the local community's expectations and needs. In addition, local authorities shall continue to be responsible, not only to provide services, but also to ensure that the well-being of the people are being taken care of. Local authority also will continue to play an important role by providing efficient waste collection services, carrying out good maintenance of roads and street lightings, as well as to protect the environment and have a well-controlled plan development within its area. Like what I mentioned before this, when passed, this amendment will ensure that the areas in our towns and cities are always clean, lively, and vibrant for us to live in. Dr. Ahmad Speakers, I wish No, Dr. Ahmad Speaker, I finished.
Ahli-ahli yang berhormat, the question before the Dewan is that the motion standing in the order paper in the name of the Minister for Local Government and Housing and Honourable Member for Batukawa be referred to the Committee of the Whole House. As many as opinions say yes, as many as contrary opinions say no, the yes of it, the motion is agreed. The Dewan shall now resolve into the Committee of the Whole House to consider the bill, which stands committed to the committee. The committee shall now consider the Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020.
Clauses 1 to 7.
The question is that clauses 1 to 7 be ordered to stand part of the bill. As many as the opinions say yes, as many contrary opinions say no, the yes have it, clauses 1 to 7 are ordered to stand part of the bill.
Enacting clauses and title.
The Dewan shall now resume. Honourable Minister.
Dr. Amar Speakers, I wish to report the Local Authorities Amendment Bills 2020 has been considered by the Committee of the whole House and agreed without amendments.
Rang Undang-Undang Kerajaan, bacaan kali yang ketiga, Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020. Yang Berhormat Menteri Kerajaan Tempatan dan Perumahan dan Ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri N14 Batu Kawah.
Dr. Amar Speakers, I beg to move that the Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020 be now read a third time and do passed.
Ahli-ahli yang berhormat, the question before the Dewan is that the Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020 be read a third time and do pass. As many as the opinions say yes, as many as contrary opinions say no, the yes have it, the bill is read a third time and pass.
Local Authorities Amendment Bill 2020.
Ahli-ahli yang berhormat, the sitting is now adjourned and the House shall resume its sitting at 9 a.m. tomorrow.